Welcome, everyone. I'm Doug Piper, and I'm with Gourmet Brewing, or with the Gourmet Brewing Channel in Greenville, South Carolina. This is our 65th major event. Now, that doesn't count all the little pop up events, of which one of our guests actually did a pop up, actually, two pop up events as we were preparing for this one. So, I appreciate you joining us. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you deciding to give this event a minute. And I promise you, you're not going to be disappointed because we've got some fantastic guests. We've got Sarah Pastula and Darrell Turner, and we're going to be talking about some wonderful cheeses because on the Gourmet Brewing Channel, we try and make your day more delicious one sip at a time. So, Cabot is an award-winning cheese producer, and Sarah is out of Cabot, Vermont, and Darrell Turner is out of Greenville, Massachusetts, but I probably said that really terrible. So, Darrell, you'll have to tell me, how do I pronounce Egremont, Massachusetts?
Yeah, it was Egremont.
Agr. I wasn't even close.
Yeah. That's okay.
So how else have you heard it pronounced besides how poorly I did it?
Egremont, all sorts of, yeah.
So it's not the first time you've heard it pronounced badly.
No.
So Sarah, did you know how to pronounce it?
I wasn't totally sure, but I've heard Cabot pronounced several different ways as well. So,
So you're actually in Cabot, Vermont, right? Yes. Or so how far is that from a significant town of any size?
Oh boy. Well, we're about 35 minutes away from Montpelier, which is the capital of Vermont. So that's probably the closest, largest town to us. So,
and of course, it's all relative for Vermont.
Mm-hmm. That's if you don't get stuck behind like some sort of big truck or something, snowplow.
Well, I would actually love to see that right now. I haven't got to travel as much as I used to, as most of us are dealing with. Well, everybody in the chat, I want you to really, clap, put some things in the chat, show Sarah and Darrell some love because, they're doing this on their own free time. It's in their evening. They're taking away time from their families in order to share it with you and share with us some amazing insights into beer and cheese. Because we've been working together for some weeks to make this happen for you. Now, first of all, the prettiest one in the room is Sarah Pastula. And I want you to know a little bit about Sarah. She's been with Cabot for 7 years. She's been manager of two different store locations and currently is the manager of the Cabot store in Waterbury, Vermont. So is that very far away from the Cabot factory? We're going to see some video in a moment. Audio.
It's about 45 minutes or so, but it's pretty close. It's not too far.
Not too far. Okay. So Sarah says she knows and loves cheese. Now, Darrell is on the other end of the spectrum because Darrell is a supplier, or actually, I guess, kind of a part owner because you're a a B corporation? So you're part of a B Corp. Turner Farms is where Darrell is from. Plus, he has Turner Hill Malting, where he provides malt for some of the craft breweries in the area. So tell us about that briefly, the malting. I'm fascinated with that. I never expected that from you, Darrell.
Well, there's just real briefly, since we'll get into it later on. Basically, I love beer, and my background is actually a mechanical engineer. So I decided to kind of combine the two and agriculture, and I formed my malt house and just kind of dove right into it. And I built everything from scratch, and it's just taken off. I'm only one of two malt houses in Massachusetts, so that's another key point. There aren't many of us in the Northeast.
Yeah, but I can't wait to hear your perspective on it because that's going to
Correct.
be a really neat aspect of this. Well, I want to jump in and let those first-time viewers know a little bit about our programming, and then we're going to come right back to you guys if that's okay. So for those of you that might be first-time viewers, these are monthly free events from subject matter experts, and that's really all we have on our programs. Again, it's the 65th free event, and that's because we have supporters out there who support primarily through Patreon. Luke Pernotto helps me with the copywriting, and for those of you that have read my writing, you know I need that help. And generally, if there's an error, it's not Luke's fault. Whit Lanning has helped me out with a lot of the glassware, some of the glassware that you'll see tonight, and he's with the Burning Blush Brewery in Mills River, North Carolina. And I want to shout out to one of the Patreon members that has just really been behind gourmet brewing, Andy Glidden. And Andy is really into beer. He's a BJCP competition director and judge. And Andy, thank you so much for being a longtime supporter of these events. And, you know, I want everybody to know how valuable you are as part of this. And so if you'd like to be part of the crowdfunding for these events, click there on the button in the bottom center of the screen, and you can explore maybe what you might can do or not do. But we hope you can in the future. Some other things just right quick logistically, there's a follow button maybe up here in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you click on those, I do pop-up events. They're unadvertised, but you'll get a notification when we go live. So we had one with Sarah when we went live. We've talked to all kinds of interesting people just on a quick pop-up. So click that if you don't mind, and it'll give you some visibility when we have a pop-up. No spam, no extra email, nothing else, just when we go live. Refreshing the browser clears up most technical issues. You can reduce resolution with Crowdcast actually by clicking on the lower right-hand corner gear symbol that's down there. And these are networking events, and I want everybody to network as much as possible. There's no easy way to kind of share your business card. The only way, and I'm open to other ideas, is I put in my LinkedIn link. I'm going to put it in there because I would like to connect with as many of you as possible. I'm actually a LinkedIn Live producer. This is actually live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. But I like, for the networking possibilities, LinkedIn's just great. So just be sure to let me know who you are when that you're part of Gourmet Brewing's watching or audience. Submit your questions down here in the bottom center of the screen. That's really important. I'm not going to tell you why, but if you ask really good questions, there might be a surprise at the end of the event. Also, thank you for those that choose automatic registration. That really helps speed things up when I do the programming. So, you know, when you're looking for an event, those that have chosen automatic registration, it just streamlines the whole process, and I appreciate that. So we have a couple of really exciting events coming up. Deschutes Brewery, Veronica Vega is going to be talking about Hop Magic and some of their fresh squeezed brut IPAs. That's going to be May 6th, and that will probably go live, or at least the registration link, probably on Saturday. Aaron Walls is going to be talking about boiling, oxygenating, and other myths, brewing myths. He has some fascinating perspective. And what I'm really looking forward to especially is Olivia Declercq from Brasserie DuPont, the home of Saison DuPont. And he's going to be talking about Saison DuPont, June the 10th. So we'll probably have some other events between now and then, but there are lots more coming. So there's enough of that stuff. Let's get to why you're here, and we're all here to learn about cheese and beer. So Sarah, you and I kind of cooked up a really neat video, and I thought what I would do is start with that. But do you need to preface it a little bit before I start it?
Well, I think it's just going to give everybody, a little bit of context as far as, what we're going to be talking about a little later on. I know you had mentioned, the cheese making process looks a little similar to brewing. So I think it's going to be really just kind of fun for everybody to see a little sneak peek into the factory and a sneak peek into Cabot. So.
Okay. And give me some feedback if the audio is not quite right, because it's a little tricky doing live video or replays in here. So put in the chat if the audio needs to come up or down, and just let me know. So with that, we'll get rid of my mug.
From a commitment to the land and people around you.
Big or small, farms are all about family. And then a close second would be that healthy environment for the cow.
Our farmers take very good care of their cows, keep them clean, keep them healthy. A healthier cow puts out a better product.
I'm very fussy about milk, and I have always been adamant about the importance of whatever it is you're making and whatever it is you're trying to sell, to make it the very best you can make it. The people that are going to handle our product once it leaves the farm, I expect they're going to try as hard as we do.
The milk never stops. There's always milk coming in, so there's always work to be done.
You have to take care of that milk to keep it a quality product.
We're here to make sure that their milk gets used right, it's safe. We want to maintain that. We don't want to hurt the farms by causing any damage there.
My lab, I have 8 technicians. It's really important that we don't have any gaps because the products we produce are associated with really high quality.
We're going to start our labor of love by pasteurizing the milk, killing any pathogens that would affect flavor down the line. Ripening adds choice bacteria cultures to the milk, turning lactose into lactic acid and creating curds and whey.
At a certain pH and a certain firmness, I will what we call cut the curd. It requires a lot of patience and it requires a lot of time. All the cultures don't always work the same. Sometimes they work faster, sometimes they work slower.
Although Cabot uses state-of-the-art automated processes to produce our high-end dairy products with consistency, our commitment to quality demands that each step is still overseen by our well-trained cheesemakers. The type of cheesemaking used here at Cabot is called a stirred curd process. The rounded curds float in a pool of whey as they are pumped onto the finishing tables.
So we'll monitor throughout that cheese make process the pH to make sure that culture is healthy and thriving.
As the whey continues to drain away from the curd, we salt our cheese to achieve our award-winning taste and preserve the cheese through the aging process. This is also when we add other ingredients like these jalapenos to create our wide variety of flavorful cheeses. Fully flavored, the curds in these towers are pressed down into 40-pound blocks of cheese. But this newly born cheese needs time to mature. The longer we allow cheese to age at our facility, the sharper the flavor becomes. So while a mild cheddar may only have to wait 2 or 3 months, our sharpest cheeses won't see the light of day for another 2 to 5 years when they are opened at our cut and wrap facility across from the plant.
Okay. Hopefully that all worked and everybody could hear okay. Let's see, Sarah, we're going to try and bring you up on screen. And Darrell, we're going to try and bring you up on screen. And we're going to get rid of me. There we go. Awesome. So everybody can hear and see okay. That's a yes.
Yes.
You hear? Okay.
Yep.
So Sarah, why don't you take it? So what were we looking at? I just loved seeing how similar it was to brewing. As a matter of fact, Ken Grossman's for his first brewing equipment was actually cheese making equipment, which now I understand why. Okay.
Well, that is very cool. Well, what we were looking at is the plant in Cabot, and it's going to be one of the plants that produces all 4 cheeses that we're talking about. We do have several different manufacturing facilities, but this one, the one that I'm sitting right down the street from, is the original facility. Cabot actually just celebrated our centennial anniversary in 2019. So That's the original plant there. It's very exciting. We produce the widest variety of cheeses out of all of our facilities. We have one in Middlebury, a butter plant in West Springfield, Massachusetts, and then a sister company in New York. But yeah, it's very exciting. We're kind of out in the boondocks here in Cabot, but we're right in the middle of farming country, which is where Cabot is really, it's the backbone of what we are, and one of the reasons I'm so excited to have Darrell here with us, because Cabot is a cooperative. So we are made up of about 800 dairy farmers throughout New England and New York. And, they are the owners and the producers, and they just work so hard every single day to produce the highest quality milk, which is obviously the base ingredient for everything that we do. So thank you, Darrell, for being here.
Well, Darrell, I think everybody's ready for a beer.
Sure.
Sarah, I'm going to knock you off the screen for a moment while we pour this, and I'm going to get off the screen. And then, Darrell, if you don't mind talking about lagers, I have a Yuengling lager. I think you have one too. And let's just talk about the characteristics of that as we do a pour, and I do my best not to spill it.
Okay.
So you have a Yuengling also, correct?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Unfortunately, Sarah couldn't get one.
Yeah, Yuengling's kind of distributed a little odd. I've heard that from other people, but so Yuengling is basically kind of I'd call it more of a pale lager. So in my malt house, I actually produce a pale malt. So this is kind of ties in with it. It's a very, drinking it, ultimately, it seems like it's a very malt forward, as in you can actually taste the maltiness of it over any of the other flavors.
Wow, what a beautiful pour, though. I mean, look at the head on that guy. You can't quite see the top, but it's about 3.5 fingers of head. And it is brilliantly clear. I think you can just about make out things here in the studio. That is beautiful. Well, I love lagers also. They're one of my favorite. And, because they go with a lot of different foods. You can just take it, and there's just nothing better than a lager and pizza, in my opinion. That is one of the best. And I happen to like Yuengling a lot because it's an all malt American lager, and just has some nice caramel characteristics that I just think go with a lot of different wonderful foods. So the food that we're talking about today is the Vermont Sharp. So let's bring that guy out, and I'm going to try my best to put that out front and center here. And then we're going to try and show that on camera too, and maybe you can start talking to the Vermont Sharp as I cut into that guy. You ready, Darrell?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go right ahead.
I know Vermont Sharp is kind of the signature cheese of all the cheeses that we have in the Cabot lineup. I honestly couldn't tell you a lot about it. Sarah's the one that talks about the cheese. Other than it's very good representation of cheddar.
Well, Sarah, we'll bring you up.
Okay.
It's okay, Darrell.
All right.
Hang on a quick second. We'll let that go full screen. And then Sarah. Heads up, your camera's on.
That was a beautiful slice, Doug. I love it. That was gorgeous.
I love these cinema cameras. I mean, it just gives you such a pretty view.
Yes.
And your packaging is so nice. Now, it's plaid. It's not quite the same color as plaid as yours.
Well, we'll see that later on with the Seriously Sharp there. But no, Darrell, you were doing a great job with that Vermont Sharp there. Before I get into the cheese, I'm drinking just a Green State lager. I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to get my hands on some Yuengling. So cheers, gentlemen. But no, a Vermont Sharp is really, your, beginning cheddar there. So it's aged about 6 months or so. And you may see it as either white or orange. It's distributed nationwide. If you do see it as orange, any of our cheeses, we do make both. The only difference there is a coloring that we add to the milk called annatto. It's a natural coloring. It comes from the seeds of the South American lipstick tree. So all it does is change the color. It doesn't do anything to the flavor or the texture. Obviously, we see here our white Vermont Sharp there. I have mine here to go with my lager. But yeah, so it's aged about 6 months. And I also want to point out before we get into any of the other cheddars, all Cabot cheddar is also naturally lactose free, which can sometimes be hard to imagine as it's a dairy product and milk has lactose in it, but just naturally in the process of it, since the whey is removed from the curd, it carries all the milk sugars. Doug, do you want to hold up the back of one of those bars there so we can see the nutrition labels?
We'll actually put it on the overhead camera.
There we go. So if you're ever questioning it, you can always look at the back on the nutrition label, and if it says 0 grams of sugar, then it's lactose free. Okay. So that's just sort of a fun fact there. And yeah, that's our Vermont Sharp, aged about 6 months or so, delicious. It's not our sharpest, but it goes great with a lager.
And cheers.
Cheers.
And Darrell, we need to get you up there. So, Sarah, what would you comment on, this is a very mild cheddar, and Yuengling is it's I won't call it neutral, but as Darrell said, it's a very malt-forward beer. So what's your experience with using a mild cheese?
Well, I mean, as far as beer pairings, and it kind of goes the same with like a wine pairing, it's great if you can have a beverage and a cheese that have the same sort of boldness behind them. If you're having a really strong beer or, a really deep red wine or something like that, it's great if you can balance that out with a really strong, sharp cheddar. So again, I keep saying sharpness, and that again is just referring to the age of a cheddar. So all cheddar is going to start off mild. Okay. And then we age it out. We have warehouses where those blocks of cheese are just going to sit and get older and older and sharper and sharper. It develops what's called tyrosine in it the older a cheese is getting. So what that is, I love your swirl there, Doug. Excellent. So what tyrosine is, some people mistake it for like a salt crystal, but all it is, it's an amino acid that'll break down in a cheddar the older it's getting. So they're like little sort of crunchy bits, and it's just a sign of a really well-aged cheddar made with amazing milk, which That's Cabot cheese for you right there. So you can also age cheese in your refrigerator. It doesn't stop aging. I don't know if you want me to get into that a little later, Doug, but
yeah, why don't we hit on that a little bit later? But I thought that was a pretty good cue. Speaking of fine milk, Darrell, you know anywhere she could find fine milk?
I do. I do. I guess
Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I'll just touch on my farm and what we do. And so I'm actually a fourth generation dairy farmer. Turner Farms was founded in right around 1950. And right now I'm milking 120 cows with 2 robots doing the milking for me, which is awesome. So my cows actually are milking right now. And we make roughly about 1,000 gallons a day out of my 120 cows. I also have roughly 600 acres that I work with just to feed those cows and make other crops that we sell, such as hay. And so I do hay, soybeans, corn. And yeah, I also, it's me, my uncle, and myself doing the whole farm. And we also do all the field work for 5 other farms in the area. So they call that custom work, where we basically rent ourselves out to do all of their field work. So we're we're pretty busy. But
yeah, but how cool is that?
Yeah. So
I know people get concerned about cows, and we won't spend much time there. But how do you know your cows are happy?
Oh, they're definitely happy because they make a lot of milk. Basically, at this point, we do numerous things on the farm to make our cows just the most comfortable they can get. They actually they sleep on mattresses. You wouldn't. It's kind of an odd thing to think about, but it's just these really thick rubber mattresses that they sleep on, so it keeps them comfortable. With the robots, we actually have the ability to they make their own schedule. The cows do. So my cows are milking right around 2.5 times a day on their own. So they just come into the robot whenever they feel. I have a couple that come in at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. It doesn't matter, you know. So they roam the farm or roam the barn, eat, drink, sleep, get milked. They're just
and they don't even have to make an appointment.
No, not at all.
Darrell, can I ask you what breed of cow do you have?
We have Holsteins. So
okay.
Black and white.
Yep.
Holstein.
Very nice. Well, I love the 120 because actually the average size farm right now in the co-op, I believe, is like 175 cows or so. So, and again, we're made up by about 800 dairies. So that really sort of, speaks to the family-owned farm that makes it Cabot. I thought it was interesting. How much milk do you produce a day? You said about
roughly 1,000 gallons.
Okay. So it takes 10 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheddar cheese. Just another fun fact right there.
Well, while we're into fun facts, I'm ready for another beer.
All right.
So, Sarah, you're going to help us with this one while I pour it, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, Darrell, hang on. We'll knock your camera off and catch you in just a moment. And then I'm going to knock off my camera so we can see the pretty beer.
That is beautiful. I'm happy that I have that one with me right now. But yeah, so we went with an IPA here, which is, just a great beer always. But IPAs tend to be a little bit on the hoppy side, which, will make sense when we talk about the cheese that we're going with there. Just because it has a little bit of a kick to it, and so does. Ooh, that was a great pour, Doug. but yeah, the hoppiness of it is going to go really, really nicely, and kind of partner up with the sharpness of the cheese that we're going to talk about in just a minute there. That's beautiful, Doug.
Well, I'll have to be honest. I do practice. If I can get a little spill going down the side, then I will have really done well. But I'm trying to do it and not flood my cutting tray, which has your nice cheese on it. So we'll see if I can get a little more there. Sarah, have you ever had the hazy little thing?
I haven't had it recently. So I'm excited to, have some of that there. But I do remember kind of like the hoppy nature of it and everything. And, when we had talked about the pairing, I'm excited for everyone to try it. Are people in the chat there? Are people following along with us? Have we had our IPAs there?
I hope so. They're missing out if they don't.
I know. Cheers,
and cheers. Actually, and Steve Morgan and Whit Lanning kind of helped me zero in on this because we were going through all your cheeses, Sarah, and Whit has a brewery, and we were matching them up, and it was really a lot of fun. It was interesting what went well and what didn't, and so our conclusion was, and this was after much thought and experimentation, that the hazy little thing went with just about everything nicely.
I'm being reminded how excellent this is.
I will have to say, and I'm kind of a convert for these hazy beers, but I will have to say it went with every one of your cheeses that we tried. So let's get to the cheese, and I'll switch over, and we'll move the beer into second place, and let's talk about Seriously Sharp.
Okay. So I match our Seriously Sharp tonight. But so Seriously Sharp, I think it's probably maybe a little familiar for those of you who are watching. This is our most popular cheddar. It's our most widely distributed cheddar cheese, and sort of our signature with the red plaid there. That's where I'm going with that. But it's also known as kind of a wild card cheese. So I had spoken about grading, and I also had kind of touched on, like how far cheese goes. So this cheese is going to be aged for about 12 to 14 months. And the graders, when we make a batch of just regular old cheddar cheese, it's made with the same starter culture, it's made with the same milk, the same amount of salt, the same rennet, all of that. So those cheeses can age out a little bit differently. Just because they're made with the exact same ingredients, the same amount of everything, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to age the exact same way. And that can happen for a number of reasons. It can happen because of weather and breed of cow and, what, different cows are eating in different pastures. And, all of those different things are going to go into the flavors of the milk, which are then going to contribute to differences in the cheese, no matter how similar you make a cheddar. Okay, everyone following along with me there. So we have these cheese graters. We usually have 3 of them at a time, nice odd number there. And what they're going to do is they're going to go through and actually test every single different batch of cheddar cheese that Cabot makes. So they have, it kind of looks like an ice pick, and they'll go through and they'll extract a core out of a large block of cheese, and they'll look at the different flavor profiles and texture profiles for that specific batch of cheddar. Okay, so every single Cabot cheddar, besides for this one, the Seriously Sharp, has a really set flavor profile, texture, consistency, all of that. So that's what our cheese graders are looking for when they're grading these cheese. So if they come across a batch that may not fit perfectly into one of those set profiles, that's actually what they're labeling as this Seriously Sharp. So again, it's a wild card cheese. It's amazing. It may be a little nuttier, a little creamier, a little more crumbly, but it's so good. And again, it's our most popular cheddar, so that sort of speaks to it right there. And
I love the additional complexity.
Absolutely.
Compared to the Vermont Sharp, as you said, it's just got more character to it, more interesting flavors. It's certainly sharper, and it just goes phenomenally with that hazy IPA. A great combination, and I'll have to say I didn't come up with it; the other guys did. So, cheers to Mike and Whit.
Job, guys.
So, Darrell, anything to add? Did you end up getting a hazy little thing?
Yes, I did. Yeah. No.
So, what do you think of the combination?
It goes very well. I wouldn't have thought so, but like you said, I think IPAs go with a lot of things. Generally, the hoppiness kind of overtakes a lot of food, but this goes very well.
Great. Well, we've got 2 more cheeses, and we're going to try and finish up at the top of the hour. And then, Sarah, you've got something special to announce at the top of the hour. Is that right?
I sure do. I'm pretty excited.
All right. So why don't you start talking about our next one while I get that set up right quick. We'll try and capture that in the camera. For those of you get ready, this will be with the New Belgium Fat Tire. And then we've got the White Oak, which is how did you put it? A special cheese. Because I said, well, the bar's a little smaller and it's a prettier package. So I'll let you get into that.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to do the pour. You go ahead and
okay. So this
what we're doing here.
Wonderful Fat Tire here. And I'm going to pour some of mine as well. But this is a little bit of a darker beer than our IPA. An amber ale like this is going to have, some sort of caramel notes to it, which is going to go wonderfully with this white oak that we're about to talk about. And again, we're looking for complementary flavors with our cheese and our beer, to elevate each other. So yeah, and that's a beautiful color there. It looks great, Doug.
Yeah, notice the nucleation point at the bottom. I don't know if everybody's catching that on the screen. I'll bring that up a little bit closer. I always love glassware. See that little volcano of bubbles? And that'll maintain that head for a while. So you can enjoy not only a delicious beer, but a very aromatic and wonderful pour. But we'll get that back so we can see the bottle and everything else. So Sarah, I'll get the cheese out. Gosh, look how clear that is, though. That is just brilliant.
Doug, I'm not going to show you my pour because it's not half as good as yours.
Well, I have practiced. And fortunate enough to have the correct glass. Unfortunately for our Guinness, I do not. So we'll have to find out a little bit more about that. So I'm going to get the cheese out now, and we'll put that in the background. And let's talk about this delicious white oak British cheddar, right?
It is. So white oak is one of my favorite cheddars. I also want to point out, just kind of as a general cheddar note here, the best way to serve cheddar, white oak, seriously sharp, any of these that we're talking about, is at room temperature. If you have a chance to let your cheese sit out for just a little while before you slice it, that's super. You'll really get all of the notes to it, and especially with this white oak, because it is part of our legacy collection. So there's a few different cheddars in that collection. We have a farmhouse, we have an Alpine style, and then there is this white oak. So the difference with these cheddars in this collection are going to be the different starter cultures that get added in to create that cheddar. So, Doug, that's our farmhouse there.
Well, it sure is. Well,
Which
good.
is also delicious. It's also part of our legacy collection.
I can open another one.
You did that on purpose.
That's right. It sure is. Well, good. I'll tell you what. So we won't take time from that. Why don't we get Darrell on screen? And Darrell can talk just a moment while I grab the other cheese.
Absolutely.
Because the wrapper is about the same.
It is. I know. We tricked you there.
Okay. I'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
So, Darrell, I know that I sent you some cheese. Are you tasting there with us as well?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So that white oak, one of the characteristics of it is a really nice sort of caramel undertone to it, which again is one of the reasons why it pairs so nicely with this amber ale. But yeah, had you paired these two before at all?
I have not. I mean, I have had a lot of beer and a lot of cheese, but I haven't actually paired both of them together. So this is whole first for me. It's the only thing with this style cheese, I feel it's really crumbly.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's just from the aging process.
Did you let it get to room temperature?
I did. Yeah.
Good. Okay, yeah. Good. I was going to say, sometimes with a cheddar, as I'm sure that you know, if you do cut a cheese, especially a much sharper cheddar, right out of the refrigerator, it does tend to crumble a little bit. Yeah. So the oldest cheddar that Cabot has right now is a 5-year aged. They came out with it for our centennial birthday a couple of years ago. But again, it's if you slice it right out of the refrigerator, it's very, very crumbly. So same with a couple of these.
Yeah.
Okay. White oak this time.
I really think it's just because you wanted to try both of them.
Well, and that's the thing everybody has to remember. These are live, and we don't get to edit out any of our mistakes. And most of you know I usually make at least one gaffe in every event. So today it is the white oak. So let's go back and we will try that again. And I got to open an extra cheese is the wonderful part about that. It is not such a bad deal.
I love it.
So this is our white oak. And I have not cut it yet, but we will cut that. And maybe you can just explain the difference, unless you were doing that, Sarah.
Yep. So again, it goes back to the separate starter cultures. So Cabot has, so many cheddars that will age out sort of into themselves a little bit. So a Vermont Sharp, the cheddar that we started with, that cheese is just going to continue to age, whether it's in our warehouses, in your refrigerator. But the difference with this one here is going to be the starter culture. So that's what's going to really give it those different undertones, those different notes. Again, it has sort of some caramel consistencies to it, which are delicious. See, we get Doug's approval there.
I'm sorry you're watching me chew, but I had to work for this one.
No.
That's a reward after you make your mistakes.
I love it. I love it. But I do want to note about the aging for really any of our cheddars, that they're just going to continue to get older and sharper. I saw a couple of questions there in the chat box about aging. So a block of cheddar is going to come to you out of the grocery store with a use by or like a sell by date on it, like a best by. That does not necessarily mean that when that cheese has gone past that date that it's bad, that you can't eat it. It actually means that it's older and sharper. So if you have a block of Vermont Sharp in your refrigerator and it goes out of code, it's going to be closer to like an extra sharp. Or if it's one of those wild card cheeses, it's going to be a seriously sharp. And then it'll just keep going up from there. So, you can age it in your refrigerators as well.
So it looks a bit more crumbly and is a bit more crumbly.
Yeah.
But it reminds me a little bit of a Parmesan. I mean, it's not there yet, but I guess I don't want to get off on a tangent because we've got another beer, but it does remind me a little bit of a Parmesan, which is one of my favorite cheeses.
Do you get sort of those caramel undertones to it there as well?
I do, and it goes so nicely with the New Belgium.
Mm-hmm. Loving it.
Very nice combination. I like that. Well, I think we have the most interesting of all coming up, and somebody interesting has just shown up. And so I want to invite them on screen, hopefully successfully. We have the brewery ambassador for Guinness. Hello, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Ooh,
a little feedback.
See if you've got more than one tab open.
Let me see.
Because you were perfect before. Yes.
Is that better?
Oh.
There you go.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for Zoom blasting us.
Yeah. Slancha, how are you?
Just great. This is going to be super. So you're gonna kind of walk us through the Guinness pour?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So do you have a can with you, Doug? Or are you going to be pouring out of a Guinness draft can?
I have the Guinness draft can.
All right. So you got
bottle.
the Guinness draft bottle. I've got the Guinness draft can. I also just poured myself a pint on the kegerator. So we've got everything we need. So let's go ahead and pour ourselves a Guinness.
You've got Guinness on a keg at your house?
Yes. It's part of the job.
Wait, you don't?
Part of the job.
I'm so jealous right now.
Well, Sarah, you got a refrigerator full of cheese, and Darrell's got a refrigerator full of malt and also milk.
Everything. Yeah.
Well, this is so cool. So, Michael, we're going to put the pour up here on screen, and have you seen any of the other? Have we been walking through these?
Yeah, I've been watching the whole thing. Really great information. I've loved it so far. I'm excited about this Guinness pairing. I think you guys picked a great cheese to go with it, actually. And I was enjoying it earlier today. And it goes really well together. And I think it's kind of a surprise. You wouldn't necessarily always think spicy with Guinness. And, as we drink this beer, I'll explain to you why that works.
Yeah, I was shocked by it. And as I said, I did a field trip at a brewery. And so we were kind of going through the various beers, and it shocked us all. But really, the stout style. The Guinness in particular just worked particularly well. So I'm going to do my best to pour it. I apologize, I don't have one of your beautiful glasses, but hopefully I'll do an acceptable job. So if you don't mind, tell everybody what we've got here.
Yeah, and as Doug pours it, I'll actually open it in the can, and you can kind of hear that whistle. The can, as opposed to the bottle, has a widget in it, which is going to help with the nitro pour. So I'll pour some from the can as well as Doug pours his from the bottle. And really, you want to hold it at a 45-degree angle and give it a pour and let it surge and settle. So we'll let that go and surge and settle. And what you can see when I say surge and settle, that's nitrogen breaking out of solution, and it's rushing to the top of that glass, creating that thick, dense cream that Guinness is known for. So as I said, in the can, we have a widget, which is this little ping pong ball shaped device here. We started using the widget in the 1980s. This goes in the can, and then when the beer goes in the can, a little bit of the nitrogen gas and the beer gets inside the tiny little pinhole in there. And when the can's sealed, the beer has nowhere to go, so it just sits in this ping pong ball. But when you open the can, it changes the atmospheric pressure in the can, so that nitrogen and beer jets out of this hole, and the widget actually just spins around inside the can, agitating the beer and creating that breakout of nitrogen. So with the bottle, you actually have to pour it a little bit rougher to get that breakout and to get that beautiful, thick, white cream that Guinness is known for. So
that's not bad.
Yeah. So this is the Guinness that everyone kind of thinks of as Guinness, is Guinness Draft. It's actually one of the newer beers in our portfolio, believe it or not, because we've been brewing since 1759. Guinness Draft was first released to celebrate our bicentennial in 1959, and it was brewed specifically to address moving on to more modern draft systems. So prior to that, Guinness was served on a high cast, low cast system, and it foamed over in modern draft systems. So a mathematician named Michael Ash invented putting nitrogen in beer, and this is actually the first nitrogenized beer in history. Guinness invented that technology. And if you taste it, what it's known for, of course, is that perfect balance between bitter and sweet, notes of coffee, espresso, baker's chocolate, kind of a roasty, toasty char note as well, a little astringent, and it finishes bone dry on the back end. And when I say dry, I mean lack of sweetness. The Irish, they say it has a moreish quality, meaning that you want more of it. Here in the United States, we're less poetic, so we say drinkability when we talk about that. But it really is a sessionable ale. It's 4.2% alcohol by volume. It's only about 124 calories per 12 ounces. So all those myths of bread in a jar, motor oil in a glass, Guinness is so heavy. In fact, it has very low volumes of CO2 because it's nitrogenized. It's actually a nice lighter, sessionable stout. What do you think, Doug?
It's one of my favorite beers. And I actually like it from the bottle, I think, better than I do from the can and with the widget. Now, you don't get the beautiful cascade of creaminess.
Right.
But I like a little bit of bite and from the carbonation, and I get a little bit more from the bottle than I do with the can.
Yeah.
But the widget's interesting. I actually heard, and I won't call his name out now, but he was saying that the widget was not pressurized. I had always thought it was pressurized. So can you touch on that just quickly again?
Widget? It's not pressurized. So let me get my little widget here. So during packaging, before the beer goes into the can, this is dropped into the can. And then, of course, the beer goes into the can under high pressure to avoid oxidation or any air getting into the can, forcing all the air that's in the can out. But there's one little pinhole in the widget. So under that high pressure, a little bit of beer and a little bit of nitrogen gets inside that widget. So it's not actually pressurized, but there's a little bit of liquid and nitrogen inside this little ball. Because once you seal that can, that beer and nitrogen has nowhere to go because of the pressure inside the can. But when you open it, the atmospheric pressure in the can changes, and it has to go somewhere. So it actually jets out of that little hole, just causing the widget to spin. So you're not adding What a lot of people think is that this is a nitrogen deployment device, that there's nitrogen
Right.
gas in this time to go into the beer when you open the can. All the nitrogen is already in the beer. Same with when you're drinking Guinness Draft in the pub. When we pour our beer, we're not adding nitrogen into the beer during that point of sale where you're buying the pint. It's all already in the beer. It's all already in the keg. We're just forcing that breakout of nitrogen in the way that we pour it.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up. But I've got some delicious cheese I want to put with it, and we're almost at the top of the hour, and we're going to move to questions. Sarah, can we talk a little bit? And I think I'll leave all four of you on screen, and I'm going to switch over here to the Pepper Jack that I have with that beautiful Guinness beer in the background. But look at all that nice jalapenos, right?
Yeah. So I loved your explanation about this beer. I could taste everything that you were saying as you were saying it. It was amazing. And I really do. I get sort of, the coffee undertones to it there, which, a little bit of a sweetness, a little bit of some, almost chocolatey notes to it there. So our Pepper Jack here, I think goes wonderfully with it because it does have a little bit of a kick to it, and it balances with sort of that sweeter, sort of chocolatey undertone. Our Pepper Jack is a Jack cheese. So a Jack cheese is a variation of a cheddar. It starts pretty much exactly the same way as far as the milk, the cultures, the rennet, the salt, all of that. But the difference, and I think everybody, I hope everyone remembers that video at the very beginning. It showed some curds in the table there. So the difference with a Jack cheese is that there's a moisture added to it. So our Jack cheese is actually made right here, like I said, right down the road from where I'm sitting right now, because that factory has open face tables. So there is a pipe that runs along the center of those tables. And when we're making a Jack cheese, like this delicious Pepper Jack, those curds get showered occasionally just with mist. And that's going to contribute to a lighter, sort of spongier texture. And that mist is just water. It cools the curd a little bit faster. And, it's going to prevent the curd from aging out to be like our 5-year aged cheddar with that moisture in it. But, again, a Jack cheese, it's so good. It's a little milder, a little spongier. And I'm thinking it goes amazing with this Guinness. So,
yeah, the Guinness almost gives it a smoky characteristic, like a smoked cheese, which is just.
I think when I was reading up about the cheese and tasting it, and when you kind of described the body of the cheese on the label, smooth, creamy, like you said, a little spongy. Right off the bat, the body of the beer, because our beer, Guinness Draft in particular, is known for being smooth and creamy. So right off the bat, you have a really great complement with the body of the cheese, the mouthfeel of the cheese, and the mouthfeel of the beer. And I think the surprising aspect of it is the spice. So nitrogen actually takes away from spice. So it can actually temper spice a little bit. It's not going to make it disappear, but it will temper it so that you can go back in for some more of the cheese. And sweetness does the same thing. And then for me, it kind of evoked things like, Thai chili sauce, Mexican hot chocolate, like things that are classically have that sweet and spicy flavor profile, but also with you said the smokiness and the kind of char in the beer and that Maillard effect, that non-enzymatic browning. This is like having like a deconstructed grilled cheese for me. Is that sweet malty kind of bready beer with the spongy, soft, fatty cheese? It's like a grilled cheese. You just got to mix it,
And I love that you said that about like the chocolate as well. Like a sweetness. And those are, opposing flavors. You have the sweet and the salty, but they elevate each other. like if you're building a charcuterie board or something a lot of people don't think to put on a charcuterie board, is chocolate. And milk chocolate goes amazing with a spicy cheese. Just like if you eat something spicy and you have to have a drink of milk, it's gonna, just like you said, sort of damper it down a little bit, but not erase the spice. They're just gonna elevate each other. So I love that you said that.
One characteristic I thought was interesting, I love pepper jack cheeses, but as we went through like these beers, we found that the pepper jack has, such a vegetable quality to it. It did not seem to go particularly well with most of the beers we tried. And then we hit the stout, and it was just kind of like, pow. There was a synergy there that did not exist. Matter of fact, it was kind of the opposite with the other beer styles that we tried. So I don't know exactly which ones pepper jack, what else it would pair with. But, vegetable qualities and beer for some people don't go together particularly well. So, but the stout seemed to just give it a synergistic relationship. So, Michael, cheers for such a delicious beer. Darrell, cheers to you for the cows that produce such wonderful cheese. And Sarah, thank you. You're the one that pulled all this wonderful event together to make it happen. So thank you for doing that. So speaking of that, I think you have talked about a special surprise now that we're at the top of the hour. Can you touch on what the surprise is?
I sure can. Are we talking about the little mail? Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same thing. Right. Okay. So,
wait, Michael, she was talking about you because you Zoom bombed us, so she didn't know if somebody else was there.
Yeah, if there was another special guest, yeah.
So, Sarah, what is the special thing you've got?
So, from us at Cabot, from all of our farm family owners, we want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight and for loving Cabot, for buying Cabot. So I have put together just a little bit of a fun giveaway that we are going to send to two very lucky people that I think Doug is going to announce maybe a little later, but I'm going to show what it is. Okay.
Well, I haven't. Yeah, you do that while I look and see who our winner is.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we're gonna. There are two different ones. Okay. So they both are going to contain this beautiful Cabot cutting board here for your cheddar that you're going to be pairing with all of your amazing beer, your IPAs, your Guinness, all of that. Vermont made. Wonderful. Okay. And then we have a Cabot cleaver. Open it up here. Okay. That you're going to use to cut on your cutting board. Okay. It's very sharp. You can cut through your sharpest cheddar, your most mild cheddar, all that good stuff. Okay. And then for one of the packages here, we're going to do a set of these glasses that you may have seen me and Darrell drinking out of today. So there will be two of those. Has our lovely world's best cheddar, because that's what we are here at Cabot. So it'll have two of those in there with those other two items. Okay. And then the other one will have this pint glass, which has a whole listing of different wonderful cheddar pairings with different beer recommendations. Has our logo there. Okay. You might have seen me and Darrell drinking out of those too, but
All right. So we're going to go, and the criteria for the winners is whoever's question got the most votes. So Lynn Howard is at the top with the list, so she's at least the first one, but my plan has completely fallen apart because we only have one vote. So since, why don't we see who comes out at the top? for the second place. But Lynn, you're in. I know you're in the USA, so we look forward to getting that. And I need to get your address. So let's just see what happens. So go through the questions, vote on the question you think is the best, and let's see if the audience can pick out our other winner. So again, go to the questions, pick out what you think's the best question, and that's going to be our second winner. Otherwise, I'm going to pick somebody. But I would rather you guys pick somebody. So I don't see any numbers moving. Let's see. I've got at least one more. Got one more. I need somebody with more than one. Aha!
I'll have to go and
I think we have a winner. I'll give it one more minute. But I think we have a winner. So just in case there's any more. And Sarah, just again, I want to thank you guys for doing this. And we're going to move into the questions next. While we're figuring that out, Michael, are you going to hang on through the questions so people can ask some Guinness, or do you need to leave?
No, I'd be happy to stick around if anyone has any questions about Guinness.
Excellent. Okay. So now I will look at the questions. If they're, we have somebody with 3 votes. And our person with 3 votes is Kelly. So
Yay, Kelly!
Kelly asked how long you should let block cheese sit to reach room temperature. So we will come back to that question, Kelly. Kelly, my email address, I'm going to put it there in the chat. I think most of you have it, but if you don't, email me with your shipping address, and we will make sure you get a package. So Kelly and Lynn, I'll need yours also. And so cheers to our winners, please.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Everyone.
Lynn and Kelly. All right, so let's move into the questions. We're actually a little bit beyond the top. And for those that need to leave, I understand a lot of you only dedicated an hour. Just know if you posted your question, you'll get a unique email where you can see your answer. You do not have to be live to get your question answered. And again, we will continue to use the numbers to vote up, but we have our winners. So that's the limit of it. So anyway, let's get to our first question, and the numbers could have changed. No, Kelly is still, she's racing to the top. She's now got 4 votes. So Kelly asks, how long should you let a block cheese sit to reach room temperature? Is that for you, Sarah?
Sure, I'll field that one. I mean, it doesn't take forever. I would say maybe 10 to 30 minutes or so. You're not looking for it to be super soft room temperature. You're just looking for it to have warmed up just enough to really get all of the notes to it. So I would say 20 minutes or so.
Great. Our next question comes from Joseph. Hello, Joseph. It's good to see you again. What is the difference between the cheddars and the other softer cheese styles that influence beer styles? So Belgium and farmhouse. So what is the difference between cheddars and other softer cheese styles?
Well, different cheese styles are going to have totally different processes. So, a cheddar is going to start with your milk. You're going to pasteurize it. You're going to add your cultures and your rennet. By the way, all Cabot cheddar cheese is also made with a vegetable-based rennet. So all Cabot cheddar is also, with the exception of our smoky bacon, vegetarian. Just throwing that out there. But I mean, they're different processes. So like a softer cheese isn't going to have all of the whey removed from it. You're thinking of like a mozzarella or like a brie or something like that. And I am not going to try to speak in any authority as far as those, because I don't know those exact technical ways of making them exactly, but I know, different cheddars are going to have specific cultures to them, and then different processes. So,
anybody else? How about just quick? What makes a cheddar a cheddar? So Joseph asked about other soft cheeses. I'm asking, what makes it a cheddar? How do you define it? What makes it different from other soft cheeses so that you know it's a cheddar?
Well, I mean, I think of a soft cheese as like a brie or a mozzarella or something like that. I would define a cheddar as a hard cheese, closer to like a Parmesan or, something like that with the consistency. And I mean, the cultures are going to be specific to it. A cheddar cheese is going to have a cheddar cheese culture added to it. And I don't know specifically what other things may be added to create a brie. As far as a cheddar, your basic.
But it's the culture is what I'm hearing. So for brewers, a lot of times the yeast can define the style.
Yeah.
And Michael's nodding his head. He knows that very well. And I'm sure Darrell does too. So you're saying the culture is kind of the equivalent of yeast for the brewers in the group, because a lot of us are brewers.
Yeah. And you can have different variations of it. Again, I was talking about the Legacy collection, which those are all cheddar cheeses that have separate, unique starter cultures that get added to it, which are going to give them different undertones. I believe it's the same way with beer a little bit, as but that's really sort of the base of it, and that culture is going to be it's a bacteria that gets added in. Again, it's the different variations. You have your rennet, which is an enzyme for a lot of different artisan cheeses. They'll use a certain type of it. We do use a vegetable-based rennet, so again, it is vegetarian. But those are really your base ingredients for a cheddar cheese. So, and I did see. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, for a lot of us, and it used to be me, I used to think it had to be orange to be cheddar.
I hear that a lot.
Yes, I'll bet you do. So the answer is no, right?
No.
No. And it's really, so again, Cabot has been around for about 100 years now, over 100 years now. And the preferred color for a cheddar in the Northeast, Darrell, I'm sure you can speak to this as well, is white cheddar. So I started with Cabot as being a tour guide when we used to do tours through the plant. And I would have people ask me, what did you color the cheese with? Because they were so used to seeing an orange cheese. It's so commonly seen. And,
Most people are from Wisconsin.
Who also make amazing cheese.
It's true.
There's everywhere. But it was just something that caught me off guard because I live here in the Northeast and I'm used to seeing white cheddar. So,
So do you have any idea what the origins of the color? I know we used to buy pistachios and they always were colored red. And my understanding was the reason pistachios were red was it would hide the defects on the shells because they sit on the ground and they'd have black spots. So if they dyed the shells red, you wouldn't see those defects. Now, California pistachios and others don't have that, so they aren't colored red. But it might have been before your time, Sarah.
I was going to say, I've never seen a red colored pistachio.
Used to be very. So,
I heard that story recently. I don't know why.
It's very, and the worst thing was you'd get it all over your hands. The dye would come all, and it was terrible. But so the color, where did the origins of the orange and cheddar? You have any idea? We have stumped a cheese expert.
Just stumped me right there. No, I believe it's like, well, it is sort of like a regional thing. And
the true white also stands attest to the quality of the milk as well, that the actual farmer provides. So it's not off color; it's just perfect. We'll go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andy has corrected me. He says red pistachios were to get around a patent on the roasting process. So
we have
we'll have to investigate that. Yeah, well, we've talked about doing a nut and beer pairing, so maybe we'll have to save that for. Is there a good beer that goes with nuts, Michael, that Guinness makes?
Pretty much all the Guinness go really well with nuts. Just because, especially roasted nuts. So anything that's roasted, because we use unmalted roasted barley as one of the main ingredients in all of our Guinness stouts, and that's what gives it that kind of chocolate espresso bean note. But it also gives it that kind of roasty, toasty bread note as well that you'll find in nuts. I find that porters tend to be a little bit nuttier than most stouts, and we do have some traditional stouts and porters. Same thing; they come from the same region, same origin story. In fact, stout used to just be an adjective to describe the strength of porter, and then evolved into its own style. So a lot of crossover between the styles. But we have a beer called Dublin Porter, which is a little slightly more nutty than our stouts, and I find that porters tend to be a little bit more nutty than stout is. But yeah, they pair great with nuts. That was a long answer for yes.
That works, but I didn't know about your porter. I've got to go check that out. Dublin Porter.
Yeah, I mean, we started off in 1759 when Arthur Guinness started brewing. He actually wasn't brewing porters or stouts. He was brewing traditional Irish ales, similar to Smithwick's. Porter and stout started in London in around 1725, and they were booming by the late 1700s. And it was Arthur Guinness II who kind of advised his father to throw his hat into that ring and start brewing solely porters and stouts. But again, back then, porter and stout was the same beer. So in fact, back then, all of our labels said Guinness Porter Brewers. So we were known as Porter Brewers. We're still, in some sense, known as Porter Brewers.
Okay, but we can still find it in stores is what I think I'm hearing.
Not the Dublin Porter in the United States right now, but it does show up in variety packs occasionally.
Okay. Well, and Andy, I appreciate you straightening me out on red pistachios. Let's move on through these. So Michael's always got good questions. Does Cabot partner or plan to with a local craft brewery to host any physical cheese and beer pairings?
Do you mean like a beer cheese sort of combination, or like
yeah, like this, but not virtual?
Not that I know of right now. No, and I think with COVID and everything, it's hard to sort of plan ahead for in-person sorts of things. I've been lucky enough to be able to jump on with people virtually and chit chat about our cheese and everything. But not that I know of right now, but I would definitely stay tuned. Our website is super, if you're ever looking for any sort of like Cabot updates or any sort of like event, anything. And I will post it in the chat there so everyone can see it. You can also, our Instagram is super, Facebook. I would absolutely jump on those as well. And they stay right up to date every single day with, different company updates, different product updates, all of that. So I'll absolutely post those too so that everyone can follow along.
Yeah, I was kind of arranging things. I want to get a group shot of all these beautiful beers and delicious cheeses. Let's move on to our next question, though. Michael, thank you for that one. David asks, hey, Sarah, how is it you became a cheese person? Is there a special curriculum that you had to study? Would you, given the chance of cross-contamination, have both a brewery and a cheese-making operation? Thanks, and you're a very attractive lady.
Oh, thank
Go,
you. You're
David.
gonna make me blush again. If given the opportunity, absolutely. I love learning about, different, especially local products. But, I love the combinations of food and any sort of pairings that, elevate what you're eating. You take a staple like cheese and a staple like beer. Beer is a staple to me, and so is cheese. And like you pair them together in the right way, and they just elevate each other amazingly. So, anyways, I started at Cabot actually as a tour guide when I was in college. When we used to do tours, we don't do them anymore. And it was my summer job. It was close to home. It was a product that I knew and was always in our refrigerator. And the more I learned about it and the more I really came to love Cabot and everything that it is and everything that it stood for. Doug, you had mentioned earlier in this presentation that Cabot's a certified B Corporation. So we were the first dairy in the U.S. to become a certified B Corporation, which I think is amazing. It just speaks to our awareness to sustainability and our accountability towards employees and everyone. I love Cabot, and as I went through college and just came into my adulthood and everything, I still loved it. And I'm so happy to be making a career out of it now. Very proud to be here.
Well, great question. Excuse me. And while I'm reading the next one, I just lined these up. I just thought this is such a beautiful display of cheeses and beer that I have really enjoyed this. And what a nice color, nice combination of cheeses. And again, Sarah, I thank you for setting all this up. So Lynn, our winner, let's get to her question. Lynn asks, does the milk that cheese is made impact the beers that the cheese pair with? For example, do goat cheeses pair with beers differently than cow or sheep milk cheeses? Ooh, Lynn, go girl.
That's a great question. A goat cheese or a sheep milk cheese are going to have totally different consistencies. They're going to have totally different flavors. And just like we had just talked about with all of the different varieties of cheddar, and cheddars are a group of cheese that, they all pair so differently with everything. So I would absolutely say it does matter. I think we could do a whole presentation for 2 hours or so about, a goat cheese pairing with beer, which, Doug, maybe you should put that on your calendar there. But absolutely.
There's a plan.
Absolutely. I will say, as far as like Cabot cheddar, because all of the milk that we use to make our cheddar is cow's milk. I will point out, Darrell, you were talking about how you have a herd of Holsteins. The farmers that make up our co-op, they have varieties of cows. So they could have Jerseys, they could have Guernseys, they could have Holsteins, they could have a mixed herd, and different breeds of cows are going to produce different types of milk. So like a Jersey is going to have a higher butter fat than Darrell's Holstein there, So again, all of Cabot's milk gets commingled to make Cabot cheddar. And that's really where that Seriously Sharp is coming from. Again, there's so many different, you can start with milk, you can start with the same culture, you can start with the same rennet, same amount of salt, but there's so many other, things that go into it that create a different end product. So the animal that you're getting your milk from. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, it'll make a big difference there.
Michael, from a beer point of view, and you guys have such a huge portfolio of various beers, how would you answer that question? Because Lynn is a very high-ranking beer judge.
Yeah.
So
I think what's fascinating about listening to Sarah speak, and one of the similarities between beer and cheese, not only that they're both fermented products, but that there is such a variation in, you were just speaking the type of cow, possibly what the cow is actually fed, and then the milk they produce, the culture that you use with the cheese, how much salt, on and on and on. Really, you can get an infinite amount of varieties, not just in cheese in general, but in specific styles like cheddar. You could have an infinite amount of variety in cheddar, and beer is very much the same way, because it's four main ingredients. It's malted barley, it's hops, water, and yeast. But depending upon the type of hops, the way the barley's been malted, the strain of barley, the strain of yeast, and how it's fermented, and how you go through that brewing process, even in a single style like stout, you can have an infinite amount of variation. And that's why, primarily we're a stout brewery, but we make, dozens of other styles of beer as well. But we can explore within that style. I think what you look for in when you're pairing cheese specifically with beer, first of all, you want strength. It's the same with all beer and food pairing. Like, you want to make sure the cheese isn't going to overwhelm the beer, and vice versa. So that strength and complexity. You want to make sure that the carbonation of the beer. If you're having a really fatty cheese like a brie or a Camembert, that there's a high volume of carbonation that can cleanse your palate. And then you're looking for those complements and those contrasts. And I'm not a cheese expert, but I would assume that goat's milk would provide different complements and contrasts. More acidity maybe, or something like that, than say a cow's milk would with beer. And the great thing about all this is that with beer and food pairing, you're never wrong. It's always just an exploration. And if you can find that one little thing to get a foothold, you can make it a pleasurable experience and kind of evoke like memories from your past, like we did with the grilled cheese earlier and things like that.
Well, Lynn, I think your question has spurred up another program. So if we can figure out how to do another event. Michael, will you help us out?
Anytime, yes.
Darrell, you and Sarah, y'all help us out on another cheese venture?
Sure.
We're here for you.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next questions. We're at the bottom of the hour. So next question, and it means we got to kind of move through. We got 8 questions in 30 minutes. And if anybody needs to leave, I understand. Next question is, what cheeses do not age well, but those that do, how is the best way to age them?
Yep, that's a great question. So I would say, from cheeses that Cabot produces, Jack cheeses do not age well. And again, a Jack cheese is a variation of a cheddar. It just has that moisture added to it. But with that moisture, it's going to prevent that cheese from becoming that really dense, sharp, crumbly, strong, bold cheese like our 5-year-old. So if you're looking to age out a cheddar, grab just one of our straight cheddars, a Vermont sharp, an extra sharp, seriously sharp, or even like a private stock or a vintage, which are already aged. But again, those are just going to continue to age. Cabot also does have a huge line of different seasoned cheddars, which are super fun. The pepper jack is, part of that. It is a jack, but there's the peppers added to it. But then there's also, we do a garlic and dill. There's a brand new flavor called peppercorn, cracked peppercorn, which is actually one of our newest flavors, part of our newest line, our deli line collection. So something that has something like that added to it may not age out, as well as just something that doesn't have anything, in it like that. But absolutely a sharp, extra sharp, seriously sharp. Go with the sell by date, leave it in your refrigerator, see what happens. If you do open it from its original packaging, really the goal is to keep as much air away from it as possible. In my refrigerator, I will admit I use saran wrap, just something that you can wrap as tight around that block of cheese as possible to keep as much air away from it. Because if air is getting to it, that is essentially what's going to make mold grow on the cheese. I love this question because it's bringing me to this. So if for some reason you see mold on your cheddar cheese in your refrigerator, that does not mean that block of cheese is bad. All that means is that there's air somehow getting to it. Maybe there's air in the packaging. Maybe you didn't wrap it tight enough. So all you have to do is take a knife, scrape that mold off, and the rest of the cheese is fine. It's just where the air is getting to it that mold is growing. So again, it's hard to ruin a great cheddar. You just
ended a battle that me and my wife have been having for years. And I'm so happy about it. I won that battle because I'm the straight mold off guy. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, a technical point. So I like to keep things in their original wrapper.
Okay.
So the question is, should I actually remove it from the wrapper and put it in the saran wrap or the plastic wrap? Or should I put the plastic wrap over the original packaging?
I would totally remove it. I would totally remove it from the original packaging. And I know that I won't say Cabot on it anymore, but you'll know in your heart that it's our amazing cheddar cheese. Right, Darrell? You're on the same page with me.
That's right.
I would move it. I would totally remove it from the packaging and rewrap it.
Okay. So I have 4 packages open here. And
I recommend making some mac and cheese. Or
Yeah.
There we
Spread
go.
it all up, make mac and cheese. You're all good.
Okay. That was a fabulous question. I'm so glad we got that settled because now I know how to keep my cheeses better. Oh, well, actually, before we leave that, do you freeze cheese?
No. Well, so you can freeze cheese. You can freeze anything. If you freeze a cheddar cheese, when it thaws, it's going to become very crumbly. So it's going to actually change the consistency of it quite a bit. So you won't, when it's thawed, you won't be able to get that really nice slice to it, even if it's at room temperature. It's still totally fine to eat, if you're cooking with it, if you're looking to store it for a long time and you're going to throw it in a mac and cheese later on, go for it. But if you're looking to have that nice slice and that nice, original cheese, don't freeze it.
Don't freeze it. Okay. Now, JTF says, highly recommend beeswax wrap.
Yep.
What is beeswax wrap? I'll have to show my ignorance. Michael, do you know what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I've bought it before at the grocery store.
Oh, so I'm the one that doesn't know.
It's more sustainable and environmental, I think, than plastic wrap.
Yes. So
and I can find that at the grocery store?
Should be able to.
Yeah, you well, not like in your, saran wrap
big box
aisle.
store.
You're going to have to,
I would Google
it in your area. Yeah. And a lot of them are like local, in our different Cabot stores, we carry a lot of different local Vermont bees wrap packaging. And they're more sustainable. Thank you, Michael. You can reuse them for many different things, yes, you can reuse them over and over. And they do the same thing as my saran wrap. So I'm again apologizing for that.
Michael, you can bomb us anytime.
Yes, I appreciate it.
You can bomb us anytime, buddy. Yeah. David asks a question now, and I suspect this goes to you, Darrell, so you're not left out of this. What variety or varieties of malt do you grow on your farm? Do you have a separate malting house? Is it floor malting? Can one come to visit your farm? I'd love to learn how to milk a cow again. Are you hand milking them or machine milking? And any chance I can get a 22-pound sample of your malt to brew with?
There's a lot of questions there. Yeah, so ultimately, right now I'm not actually growing my own barley. I'm purchasing it from a fellow farmer, actually in Maine, and then bringing it down to me. But basically, I have a small malt house that's right outside my house. It's a 20 by 30 building that I built, and I'm using a system called a Saladin tank system. So it's similar to a Saladin system, but it's a tank system where I steep and germinate in one tank, and then I transfer it into a kiln, which is another tank, where I finish it off. So basically, it's a separate system. It's more of an industrialized type of application for the malting system. You can do different types, and I ended up with this system just because it's something that I could design and build myself, which I did. And yeah, it's just one of those things.
He's not a mechanical engineer for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm actually using a variety of barley called Newdale, which is a 2-row, which is very popular in the Northeast. In a lot of the small malt houses that we have in this area, we use that variety, pretty specific, because it has a lot of very good qualities that we're looking for in malting. So a lot of people don't realize this, and I'm going to just throw this one point out because it kind of puts on scale a lot of things in the beer world versus agriculture. I don't know if anyone really truly knows in this whole group how much land mass does it take to grow 1 pint of beer? Does anyone know this? Out of all of us here? No? Okay.
Totally.
Okay. It's a very
you have
weird
the floor,
thing.
my friend.
Okay, it's a very weird thing, but it takes 4 square feet of a field to grow 1 pint of beer. And that's just based off of the grain bill in a typical brewery. So it's just something to kind of a weird, unique tidbit to throw out there. But
now, Michael, you learned something, buddy.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we're trying to get the word out. That basically things need to be grown, and your beer is literally grown. A lot of people don't realize that, but
David says engineers rule. Oh, no, he said mechanical engineers rule.
There you go. I agree wholeheartedly.
And Darrell, I just want to point out, I think that's, I'm so happy that you came on with us today. I'm so happy that you're here, because I think, for most things, a lot of people forget to tie what they're eating back to agriculture, and your food comes from somewhere, whether it's cheese or whether it's beer, whatever it is, it's coming from somewhere. And I think it matters where it's coming from. And I love that you're one of our farmers. You're one of our owners. You're, producing that milk to make our cheese, and you have your malting company. I think that's amazing. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. I saw another question that kind of popped up there, if I could address it real quick.
Of course.
It ties into the brewery and whatnot. It was about cows eating spent grain. So it is something that happens on a lot of farms. If you are close to a brewery, your cows can eat the leftovers spent grain. It's very, very nutritious.
And a lot of our farmers do that too.
Yes. Yeah. I don't personally do it. It just doesn't work with my system that I have. And I guess that was the other part of the question, was if I was hand milking, which I am not. And actually, it's been a year and a half since I've actually physically milked a cow by myself with a machine or anything, because I have robots that do it now. And a lot of farms are doing this now. They're installing robots which milk the cows themselves. And it's just kind of a very, very cool, unique way that the industry has just made it that much better for the farmers' lives. And it's very good. It's a good thing.
I think that comes back to David's comment. Mechanical engineers rule. We got robot to milk the cows.
Yep.
Now, Sarah, good. So back to cheese. So
Sure.
I've been enjoying munching. I kind of like this white oak especially. That's really nice. But there's some crunchiness in it. Now, is that the salt?
It's it'll be the tyrosine, the crystals.
Tyrosine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but
So
I hear salt crystals. Is that in different cheeses, or most of the time, if you get crunchiness, it's tyrosine?
For a cheddar, that's
For a cheddar,
most of the
okay.
time what it is. Yes.
Okay.
And again,
I like
it's
that.
isn't it delicious?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that means that you like a nice sharp, cheddar. And again, it's a natural occurrence. If you were to take a block of cheese and leave it in your refrigerator, it'll age out and it'll develop that and it'll change its consistency. So that's what it is.
So it's a positive characteristic of aging. That's what it boils down to.
For sure. It's so delicious.
I would have to agree, but I didn't know what it was. Okay. Great question, David. You are on it. JTF asks, when are we going to get a Cabot and beer Cabot? Let me start over again. When are we going to get a Cabot beer and cheese collab? When are we going to get a beer with our Cabot lactose? I can't be the only Cabot farmer wanting a Cabot milk stout. You go, JTF.
That I don't know. I will be happy to try it if and when it comes out, and I'll be happy to learn all about it and talk to y'all about it and everything, but I don't know when that'll happen.
Now, Darrell, you know a brewery, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not quite very close to Cabot, Vermont right now. It's about I'd say solid 4-hour drive for me. Yeah, unfortunately. But
well, we might have to help you there, Sarah. I bet between Michael and I, we know some breweries nearby.
All right. Well, we can work on it. I can do my best, but I'm not making any promises.
JTF, great question, but I like the idea of a Cabot milk stout. That just sounds like something awesome.
Somewhere. Not sure, but I will.
Catherine asks, has Cabot done any events teaming up with the many breweries? A little bit the same. And if not, are there any in the works that we should know about? Slightly different question.
Yeah, none currently that I can name off the top of my head. Again, a really great resource is our website, our Facebook page, our Instagram. They do an amazing job with keeping any sorts of updates, especially for events and things like that. I think maybe some of you saw this on our Cabot Facebook page. So I would definitely recommend following us, becoming a Cabot insider. In addition to all of the great updates that they post, they send recipes and all sorts of good stuff. So to answer that question, not off the top of my head, but maybe stay tuned.
Well, it's a great question. That means we need to continue this. So we'll move forward to the next question. This one's a quick one. Michael, this one goes to you. Tom asks, where you located? Are you in Maryland?
I'm not at our Open Gate Brewery and Barrel House in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm actually in Lowell, Massachusetts. There are 4 Guinness Brewery ambassadors in the country. We have one at the brewery, and his job is mainly at the brewery in the surrounding region, so Baltimore and Maryland. I cover pretty much the entire Northeast, so from the tip of Maine all the way down to Philadelphia. I do all their beer education, training, with distributors and account staff, consumer-facing events, social media, all that kind of great stuff in this region. Just a lot of beer education and going to pubs and telling stories and drinking pints. But yeah, I'm in Lowell, Massachusetts.
I know you have a beautiful tap room there in Baltimore.
Yes.
Is it open to the public yet? Do you know?
Yeah, they are open. You can visit the brewery. So the brewery itself's been open for over 2 years now. They have a tap room, which kind of has a lounge kind of pub feel to it with a small food menu. There's a restaurant upstairs. The entire facility has this great kind of museum quality feel to it. If you've ever been to St. James Gate in Dublin, they've tied in some design aesthetics from St. James's Gate into the Baltimore brewery. There's also a beautiful beer garden, which is where we're doing most of our business nowadays because of COVID. But it's huge. It's almost, it's twice the size of a football field. And you can go and enjoy beer outside there. And they've been really good about COVID safety protocols and all that kind of stuff and keeping things clean and people safe. So if you're in the area, go visit. I'm actually going myself for Father's Day. I'm going to go down there with a few buddies to visit again.
And Darrell, you've been to the brewery in Ireland, hadn't you?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I went. I had my honeymoon in Ireland.
I honeymooned in Ireland.
Well, there you go. Yeah. I made it a point. I had to go to
Ireland someday.
I made it a point. I had to go to the Guinness.
Yeah. It was actually before I worked for Guinness, and as we left, I'd already been in the beer industry for over 10 years at the point. And as we left there, I've always been a huge Guinness fan. And I told my wife, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if I could work at Guinness one day? And like,
there you go.
Just a wish happened. 3 months later, I was working for Guinness. It was crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
Tom, great question. Elliot asks, and I would guess this goes to Cabot, but we'll actually point it back also to you, Michael. Do you guys give tours if one chooses to visit?
I'll start. We do not currently, and actually, our retail stores are actually not even open right now. We, with COVID and everything, what's, I guess, kind of unique about Cabot is that we have manufacturing facilities that are, we don't have very many of them. And they are the manufacturing facilities that are pushing product out everywhere. So when COVID hit, we actually all redeployed up to production. I've been putting some time in on cut and wrap and production and all of that, which has been a great experience. But as far as tours, those stopped back in 2017, I believe. It was due to the Food Safety Modernization Act. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it at that point touched manufacturing facilities. And our tour, it was a real factory tour. So we were literally walking people right through the production. Yes, there was, windows around us, but the product was being transferred through the halls and everything. It was amazing. But it couldn't happen anymore. So no, we do not give factory tours.
But you've got some good videos because we saw that earlier.
Absolutely do, for sure.
So Cabot might not give tours, but a lot of the Cabot farmers are more than welcome, more than willing to give farm tours all the time. I have people stopping by. We're kind of near a major highway, and they stop and just check out the farm. But, a lot of our farms are very open.
Yeah.
I will do that, Darrell.
Yeah,
Well, while we're on that page, Michael, what about Guinness? Do they have any tours yet?
Yeah, so there's always been several tour experiences that you can enjoy at St. James's Gate in Dublin if you're there, but unfortunately right now you can't because of COVID. They're pretty much in a full lockdown in Ireland. In Baltimore, I think there's around the beer garden, there's kind of an ingredients tour that you can do when the building fully opens up and they can do tours. It's really actually unique to Dublin because in Dublin you don't actually get to see the brewery, which is one of the largest in the world. But you get to walk through the process and see some of the history and artifacts and things like that. But in Baltimore, we have a 100 hectoliter and a 10 beer barrel brewery. And you get to actually see the 10 beer barrel brewery in Baltimore. So again, both of them are closed right now because of COVID. But I think Baltimore also, if you go on their website, they've been doing virtual tours. So there is your ability to get on the computer and do a tour from home.
Sarah, do you mind putting in the chat maybe the link to your YouTube channel? We were talking about that media, and David's asking about that. If you could pop that in there, that would be great. Michael asks, and I'm going to add a word. He didn't put this word in here, but this is to you, Michael. Where's the best place to find a fresh foreign extra stout?
Nigeria. If you're ever in the area. So all of the core Guinness products that we get here in the United States, that would be Guinness Draft, Guinness Extra Stout, Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, Smithwick's, and Harp, are all brewed at St. James's Gate in Dublin. They all come over here fairly short into their best buy dates. And with something like Foreign Extra Stout, that's something that you can, be pretty confident that it's going to taste good even towards the end and past its best by date because it's a bigger, more robust beer. It's 7.5% alcohol by volume. I would say reach out to your local distributor to find out what stores carry it. Here in the United States, it comes in 4-packs. It's not one of the more popular Guinness varieties, but I know that in the Northeast we sell a fair amount of the Guinness Foreign Extra Stout. So it really depends on the region. But if you reach out to your local distributor, you should be able to find it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
It's an amazing beer. Yeah, we actually sell more of that beer than Guinness Draft worldwide. So that's actually our most popular stout worldwide.
But when it opens, go to the Guinness place. Yeah. There's a different taste.
We're here in Nigeria. We have an amazing brewery in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they think of Guinness Foreign Extra Stout. That's their local beer, their craft beer. And they take a lot of pride in it. So. And
if it's not a honeymoon, make it a second honeymoon,
there
right?
You go. Yeah.
Try to make it my first there.
We're at our last question, and Sarah, you're going to help us wrap up when we get done with this question.
Okay.
Kind of for those that might have jumped in here late, your thoughts about beer and cheese pairings, just to kind of wrap things up. And Michael, if you've got anything to add, we've got a little less than 4 minutes, and we'll have a hard stop. I paid for 2 hours, and they literally pulled the plug. So the question, comes from Tom. He says, "Does Cabot guard their cheddar and other cultures like breweries do yeasts, especially the ones that are homegrown and developed?" Great question, Tom.
That is a great question. I think I'm going to be stumped for the second time tonight because I'm not totally sure the answer to that. I mean, I know that there are the specific cultures, the specific cheeses, and, Cabot cheese. Much beyond that, I'm not totally sure. And I'm gonna
and that's what
we'll there.
And we'll call it there. So Sarah has a chance to think. Michael, you're here, and thank you so much for Zoom bombing us, and what an unexpected pleasure.
He won't let you
and I know I'm putting you on the spot. And David says, "You all rule. Thank you for a wonderful evening." So the question is this: if someone were to ask you beer and cheese pairings, What is kind of some best practice? And Sarah, we'll come right back to you.
Yeah, I'd say in beer and food pairing in general, and this applies to cheese because cheese and beer is just one of those natural combinations. Don't be intimidated. It's not as complex as it seems, and you can't get things wrong. So go out, buy a bunch of cheese, make it Cabot for Sarah's sake. Go out and buy a bunch of Cabot, buy a bunch of fun beers that you enjoy drinking, buy some Guinness for me, and just sit down and see what happens, and have a sip of beer and have a slice of cheese and so on and so forth, and come up with your own ideas. The thing you really want to do is develop that Rolodex of adjectives in your mind, and the best way to do that is to connect the sensory experiences with experiences you've had in your past. So things like, oh, this reminds me of when grandma was baking chocolate chip cookies, or this reminds me of when I was walking through the hop fields in Yakima. Whatever those sensory experiences are, that's how you're going to really connect to that culinary experience. But yeah, don't be intimidated, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because you can't. Just get cheese, get beer, and enjoy it. Sláinte.
Sarah, can you help us on this? Delicious cheddars.
I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, you can't go wrong, obviously, with Cabot cheddar. It's world's best cheddar. But then, just like he was saying, you really can't go wrong. And it's a lot of personal preference. I love Alpine cheese, and that was, one that we didn't even talk about tonight. And I know that it pairs amazing with several of these beers here, our Guinness included, so, don't be intimidated by it. You can't go wrong. It's going to be an amazing palate experience, whatever you love and whatever you put together. So as long as it's
we had a ball. I brought a box of Cabot cheese to a brewery, and the brewer was there, and we just started.
My box?
Yes, it was your box.
Okay, good.
And we had these Cabot cheeses, and we were matching everything up, and we had a ball. And so I highly recommend it. It's a great experience. Go grab 4 or 5 cheeses, take them into a brewery, and just see what works well. The breweries are a great place to do it, and the brewer might even help you out. Well, we are about to run out of time. Literally, we're seconds away. Cheers. Darrell, thank you so much. Sarah, thank you so much. Michael, best Zoom bomb ever. So thank you. And this was wonderful. Sarah, we owe you the cheers, especially because you pulled all this together. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. This was so special. Love it all.
Thank you.
Audience, thank you so much. You guys took a lot of times, a lot of you that are here, a full 2 hours. So we just thank you so much, and we thank you for the great questions. And we have some prize winners, and be sure to email me, you prize winners, and give me that address so we can get it shipped to you. Lynn says thank you. Tom